everyone, it's Becky here and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I filmed a video because recent weeks have been very crazy. If you are new to this channel and you don't know, hello, I'm originally from Slovakia and I live a couple years in Scotland, and in July I have moved to Austria because I happened to meet somebody who lives here and I now live with him, and we moved in together in July, and now I basically started a new job in November, which is quite a big challenge because it's in German, and I have been studying German since July for several months, and now I started a new job, so it's quite I would say mentally demanding, and I often work long hours because I work now in one shop, which is a little bit different from what I used to do before, because previously I worked as a production manager in one company that films commercials, and I was working on the set and stuff, and then before it was with short films, and now it's adjusting to completely new type of the job because my German skills are not as fluent as I would like them yet, and they are not as fluent to for me to be able to work in my sort of field and my type of job. So right now I'm working in one little lovely shop, but I work there for 10 hours a day. So those are long days, and usually those days I don't really have time to film anything because I'm quite tired when I get home. And then also during the days when I am off, we are mostly working on renovating our apartment because that's been something which we've been doing for past 2 months as well. So it's been quite a busy time, and I realized recently that I haven't posted a video in over 3 weeks, and what I would like to do today is to give you little updates and catch up with you a little bit, to ask you what are you currently reading, and also to tell you about my recent reads, because I haven't even had time to film my October/Victober wrap up. Bless you. I don't know if you heard, but my boyfriend just sneezed. I don't know what else the mic can pick up, but I haven't even had time to film my October wrap-up, and now is the end of November, so I just decided to make a video in which I would be talking to you about my recent reads, so to say, so from both months combined. And I think that's it for introduction, and without further ado I would just start. And the first book which I started back in October, which was also my Victober read, is the book called Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. And this was my second read by the author, and I very much loved the first book I read, which was Woman in White. And I must say that I continue loving his style of writing because it's so beautiful that it feels like a poetry sometimes. And this is a story of the Moonstone, which is this very precious, big, large diamond which was stolen from Indian shrine, and then somehow it get into the hands of a young lady who got it gifted as a gift for her birthday, and then the same night the diamond disappeared again. And throughout this story we are trying to discover what happened and why it disappeared and where is it now and what's going on actually. So it's a little bit like of a detective slash thriller story, and normally I do not read these ones, but when it's sort of like included in Victorian literature and you also have a love story going on and somehow there is a big diamond missing, I'm up for it. So this was, I would say, 3.5 stars for me. Very solid one. I very much enjoy writing of Wilkie Collins because I feel like he really makes so many characters relatable in different ways. So what is also lovely about this book is that basically the story is told from different point of views of different people, because they all are sort of like writing down what they remember from the event when the gemstone got missing. So it's very interestingly written as well, but you have so many different characters and I feel like you can relate to a lot of them, even if it's, for example, here one of the characters is this old man who used to work his whole life for this wealthy family. And he is always talking about how Robinson Crusoe is one of his favorite books of all times, and how whenever he feels anxious or something weird is going on, he just finds the comfort in rereading the book, and he finds it able to quote it in whatever situation happens, and just recommending the book to people. And I found this very interesting because I feel like we all have this one book or a film or something which we find comforting and we just keep talking about it all the time. So even in like different ways, I really found it relatable with different characters. I would say that this is a chunky book. It's, if I remember correctly, it's around 500 pages, and this specific edition of Penguin's Popular Classic, for me, the font was just too small. Like, I do not use my reading glasses very often, but here I really had to, and there is a lot of words on the page, and I feel like I would give this maybe 4 stars if it was a little bit shorter, because I feel like some events were described just a little bit too long for my taste, and I could imagine this book being 100 pages shorter, and I think that would be like the perfect amount of words on the page. But I must say it was very gripping, it was very interesting, and I remember approximately it was like 300 pages in or something, and there was this big revelation and my face literally went like when I was reading this. I remember that moment specifically because since I do not really read this type of genre very often, then I did not see this coming, and I thought that I might know what will happen, but then I was wrong, and it was a really big surprise for me. So really good one, 3.5 stars, and this was for my Victober reads. And then the second book I read in Victober was Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, and this was the first time, my friends, and I'm really hoping the last time in my life when I did not finish Charlotte Bronte's book. I know, I'm equally surprised, because I never read this book, and if you watched my Victober TBR, I mentioned then that this year I did not go necessarily with all the prompts from the Victober, because I really wanted to tackle the books which I had physically on my bookshelves, which are Victorian literature, but I haven't read them yet. So Shirley was one of them, although this actually kind of fitted into the prompts because it was supposed to be about women's friendship, if I remember correctly. But I didn't even get to this part because I stopped reading this in approximately the first half of the first book, because my Shirley edition is basically 2 separated books, but it's like one story. But this is the first one, and I got approximately into the first half of this, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, like I was reading it, but I wasn't really able to get into it. There were a lot of different discussions and talks within different priests, and I found them quite weird at some point. And then there was this one lady falling in love with the one of them, which normally would keep me hooked because, you know, no. And I just put it down because I thought that, okay, maybe I can start reading another book, and as I read the other book I will just always read, you know, a few pages from this one, but it just never came to it, and so this was unfinished for me. I still hope to finish it at some point because I love Bronte sisters and I love Charlotte Bronte's writing, so for some reason I really do want to finish this, but maybe I will have to give it another go. So please, if you have a positive experience with this book, if you read this and you like this, let me know and encourage me a little bit, because I do want to finish it, but I just didn't manage to do it this October, neither November. So maybe at some point in my life I will finally finish it, but let me know if you read it and if you had a good experience with this. Also, maybe you noticed, but I'm talking a little bit quieter because my boyfriend is in another room, and I never ever, in the whole years which I have booktube, never ever I film when somebody is in the house because I'm too shy for it. And now it just feels really weird, so I notice I'm very much like calmer and quieter because it feels weird. Like, you know, he's super supportive when it comes to my booktube, and he watches my videos, which always makes me so, I don't know, it feels weird because I don't like watching myself on the camera, although which is weird because, you know, I'm filming the videos, but this is also the first time somebody is in the house while I'm filming, so I feel like completely different personality right now. Anyway, my friends, the third book which I read, and it was absolute delight, and it was my reread of Dracula. And I picked this book up because, again, I mentioned previously that there was a new movie version, Dracula A Love Tale, came out by Luc Besson, and I'm not gonna go very much into it because I seen this movie a while ago now, and I'm very glad it's been a while, because I became a little bit obsessed to the point that I did not know it's possible for a 20-year-old to be still this sort of like hyped up to the point of like shaky hands obsessed type of thing, because I firstly saw all these edits of a new movie on Instagram where there were Dracula with Mina together, and it was just absolutely amazing, and my romantic heart just cried all the time, and it was absolutely stunning. And then I finally watched the movie, and I was, let's say, disappointed. Yeah, I was disappointed because of the CGI and of how the environment changed and how different characters were added and how some of the dialogues were very stupid, especially like if you've seen the movie. I don't really want to go very much into it because I would be here another hour, but if you've seen the movie, let me know in the comments, please, and we can have discussion on this separately, because I was actually thinking of filming a separated video regarding Dracula book and then the new movie, but then I didn't have time. But maybe I will get into it at some point, so if you are still interested, let me know. But I must say that that movie, when it comes to the vibe itself and then the costumes and the setting and everything, that was wonderful. And also the main guy who played Dracula, hell yes, I mean yes, that was brilliant. But then there were a lot of things in the movie that just did not really sit well with me, and especially as like very silly dialogue at some point, and that's one thing I cannot really handle when it comes to movies. But anyway, back to the book. So seeing the new movie came out was what made me reread Dracula, and I just loved this. I read this for the first time last year, and now it was my second reread basically, and I read it in English because this is a Slovak copy which I have, and I also got ebook in English because I wanted to read it in English as well. So I read this in English this time, and I just love that story. You know, I'm not gonna tell you what the story is about because I think many of you already know, like everyone knows Dracula, but what I love about this especially is the writing itself, because it's just so beautifully written, and I love so many characters in this story, especially how women are portrayed in here, because Mina, definitely one of my favorite characters in literature like ever, and then also Lucy. I very much love Lucy in the book version, because previously when I saw, for example, Francis Ford Coppola adaptation, the movie, I just didn't really like Lucy, and there's like the whole thing like Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie adaptation. I do like it because Gary Oldman, I mean, but in the same time there are so many things about that movie which I do not understand why it was like sexualized so much. Like I have nothing against this in movies when it's done well, but I just felt like here in this version it was just really unnecessary. But anyway, so in that film adaptation, I just did not really like Lucy, or like I did not really have any special like feeling towards her as a character, but in the book I loved her and I felt so sorry for her. But also the character of Mina, and I must say that probably Mina and Jonathan are one of my favorite literally couples like ever. They are really getting there. I really love it. And also I love how the book just described the friendship in general, especially, you know, three men who loved Lucy and what they were willing to do and sacrifice, not only as when it comes to the friendship itself, but them as a man, because if you love a woman and you know you cannot have her, but you're willing to help to somebody else because for the sake of her, you know, this is so lovely and so beautiful. So even like the partnership, how it was described, and then also Van Helsing, I really love how he was written in a way that how appreciative he was towards Mina, because I feel like the books written in those times, they were quite not very pleasant when it comes to describing women, and here, you know, when old man who is an academic admires how smart a woman is and her brain and her ability to remember trains and type and all of these things, is just wonderful. So definitely this 5-star read for me, and I think it's one of those things which I'm going to be rereading every year right now, because it's very weirdly giving me a lot of comfort. Although it's a Dracula, it's quite a horror kind of thing, but it just gives me a lot of comfort and perfect thing to read for me in autumn, especially when it's sort of like transitioning into the winter months. Also, one funny thing I have when it comes to Dracula, I've seen so many adaptations and I read this book twice now, but for some reason my brain is just unable to recognize what parts belong to the book and what part belong to the movie. So if you ask me about something from Dracula, I'm not really sure if I seen it in some of the movie adaptation or if it actually in the book. Anybody else like this? Because I don't know why is that. I don't have this problem with any other film versus book adaptation, but when it comes to Dracula, even now when you would ask me about how this story ends, I would probably be for a couple seconds very confused regarding what actually happened in the book and what happens in one of the movies. But yeah, definitely, if you haven't read Dracula, highly recommend. Perfect for autumnal winter months. Yes. And whilst it's quite chunky, it reads very quickly because it's perfect. And let me tell you, I read this in 2 languages and in both of them, excellence. And was this all from October? No. What book did I read in October? Wait. I'm confused. Moonstone, Shirley, Dracula. Oh my gosh, yeah, this one. So the last book which I read in October is this one. It's The Healing Season of Pottery, which is this absolutely stunning pinkish, wonderful, beautiful pink cover. And this is a very thin book. It's approximately 250 pages, and it's just so lovely. It's one of those things which is also perfect to read in autumn, when you're, you know, wrapped up in a blanket and you have tea and you have candles, and it's just so beautiful. And absolutely I wanted to visit a pottery studio after reading this. It's a story of a young Min, who is this young woman who feels quite burnt out from almost everything, from her job, from constant movement, from failed relationship, and sort of like life in general, until the point she discovers this little pottery studio in Seoul, which she accidentally walked into because she thought it's a flower shop. And she started to take the classes there, and that's basically where her whole life changes, because she meets a lot of people there. She meets people who become her friends, her mentors in a way, and also some love story happens there as well. And it's just pure delight, you know. It's just so cozy read. One thing which maybe bothered me teeny tiny bit is that I felt like everything just happens too easy for the character or for the story, you know. It's sort of like a fairy tale type of thing that I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, it's very cozy read with quite happy endings for everyone, almost. But it just felt like everything is just given like this, you know, that there is something which happened in the past which is sort of like traumatic, and through this book she manages to work through it, also through the pottery studio and everything. But I just felt like every single obstacle which was thrown her way was just solved, like, okay, here is the solution, you don't have to do this, you just have to do this, and it's just very simple. And that was a little bit like but I can totally forgive it in this book because it was just so cozy and so lovely read. So those are my 4 books which I read in October. Please let me know what was your favorite book of October, because I would love to know. And I think that from these, definitely Dracula and Healing Season of the Pottery would be winning. And now moving to November. So in November, I think my battery will die, so 1 second. Okay, we are back. So in November I read the Book of Heartbreak by Ceren, and maybe you know this name, maybe you don't, but I think that most of you, if you are especially following different Bookstagram accounts as well on Instagram, you will know Excuse My Reading, which is a channel or like profile, sorry, on Instagram, which I've been following for many years, and it's this absolutely charming lady with a wonderful garden library and ducks, and I just love it so much. And she wrote a book recently, and I really wanted to explore this, and it was such a lovely experience and such a lovely read. The main character is Sarah Silverbridge, and she was born with cursed heart, which means that her heart can only be broken 5 times and then she dies. And already because of certain events that happened in her life, her heart has been broken 4 times already. She is literally having sort of like a last chance, and this pushes her to a little bit explore what's happening and why is she cursed in the first place, and if there is actually a chance to break this curse, and yes, how. And all this leads her to Istanbul, because also at the very beginning of the book, this is not a spoiler, but her mother unfortunately passes away, and somehow she finds herself living in Istanbul with her grandfather, and from there she also meets Leon, who is now her friend and a seer, and they start to discovering this curse together, and they're trying to figure it out if it's even possible to break it. And this was such a lovely read, because it feels like a fairy tale for both teenagers and adults, and there is a lot of different things that you have to think about, you know, when it comes to, for example, topic of forgiveness, and then love and importance of love in your life, and whether it's worth it to suffer for love in a way, and also friendship and being able to have someone to rely on, and then family relationship, and especially forgiveness. The topic of forgiveness was very strong in this one, and I just found it very beautiful read. Also, it's filled with a lot of like magic and old legends and celestial beings and angels, and it's just, it was just lovely. And also, can we appreciate the cover, please? It's so beautiful. I read this within like 3 days, I think, and it's approximately less than 450 pages, so you can read through it very quickly because it's very gripping. And yeah, I just love it. So highly recommend if you haven't had a chance to explore this book. And this was my first read of November. And then the other one I did read, but it was actually audiobook, and that was by Anthony Hopkins, We Did Okay Kid. And if you've been here for a while, you know that I absolutely love memoirs, and I very much like to have them as an audiobook, especially when the author themselves or some good actor or voice actor or narrator are narrating them. And in this case it was narrated by Kenneth Branagh, and then the poetry was read by Sir Anthony Hopkins himself. And it was just pure delight. And I must tell you that Kenneth Branagh, he did such a good job when it comes to reading, that at the first beginning of the book, it didn't even occur to me that it's not Sir Anthony Hopkins himself, because he did such a good job with his voice that it was almost in a bit unrecognizable that it's just not Anthony Hopkins himself. And basically this book, since it's a memoir, as you can expect, it takes you back to Sir Anthony Hopkins' childhood, and we get to know about his family and the relationship he had with his father, and how he actually got through the school and to acting, and firstly in theater, then in film. He speaks about his personal life when it comes to his marriages and also the relationship with his daughter, and then about different movies he acted in and the experiences he had with that. And it's just, it feels very honest, because he's also not shy to speak about how arrogant he used to be in certain... Okay, this was funny because first my battery and now my SD card was full, so it just stopped me. Okay, so as I was saying, it felt very honest because he was also talking about his struggles with alcohol and some regrets he had in life, and it was just very, very lovely read because it felt very human for someone like him, who is very much this big, huge, lovely actor who I love very much and admire very much. So highly recommend, and especially the audiobook, because honestly, like, the highlight was when at the end Sir Anthony Hopkins was reading poetry, some of his favorite poems, and that was just beautiful. If any of you happens to know someone who has an audiobook read of poetry with similar voice as Anthony Hopkins, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to listen to it. So that was my second read in November. Quick break. And my third book was this one, The Whispering Muse. And with this I have quite strange experience, because at the very beginning I really despised the main character for some reason. I just found her very annoying, and I was like, okay, but what the heck. And then the story felt a little bit like too much of soap opera for me, and I was like, I don't know if I like this. But then I got into it and I very much liked it, and then the end, they killed me. But anyway, let me tell you what the book is about first. So this is a story of a Jenny, who is our main character, and she used to work as maid in different families to support her own family, because she has a few siblings she needs to take care of, and the oldest brother basically took away with some stolen jewelry as well, and he was away. Mother died and father was gone too, so she was the one responsible for her younger siblings. So she was working as a maid for different families until the point she found work in theater, and she was working as a dresser for one very famous actress at the time. But the issue was that the actress claimed that she has her talent from a muse, and that was a little bit like a spooky, ghostly, musey vibes. So that was very interesting. But then, as I mentioned, as I was going into the book, there was quite a lot of things which felt a little bit like a soap opera, because this one was cheating and this one loved another one, and then she wanted the revenge, and then she was trying to poison her, and then these people got killed and they died, and it's quite a lot of trigger warnings when it comes to death, and quite violent death, and also suicide and these type of things. But I must say that through all of this I happened to love the story eventually, because the vibe it gave, and it was set in old theaters in London, so it gives you such a, for example, If We Were Villains type of book vibe, because they're also talking about different plays, and also Shakespearean Macbeth is there, so that was very much lovely. It was very vivid and you could feel the characters. And what is interesting about this book, and I love when it happens, is that when at the beginning, for example, you used to dislike certain characters, you actually grow liking them, and then the other way around as well. When you like some characters, you actually like, oh, that, you know, it was very, very good. But I must say the ending really killed it for me, because you know, it was one of those cases when you read a book and there is so much happening and you're curious how author is going to solve this, but you have only few pages left and you start to be a little bit worried how it's gonna end. And the way it was all set, it just felt like it really could give a good end, you know, but then it just felt very obvious and very simple, and with one huge thing or event which sort of like solved thing for everyone, it just got solved, and it just felt like very quick way to end it, and I was not satisfied at all. So That was really disappointing, because from me not liking the book eventually and then loving it throughout it and then ending completely destroying it, for me it was just so sad experience. So if you like this, please let me know, because I would love to chat about this with someone. But I would say this would be like 3.5, maybe 4 stars for me. I still haven't decided, because I want to give it 4 stars for how I grow to like it, but then the ending just spoiled it all for me. So anyway, this was another read in November. I have my whole pile here now. And then the last book which I read in November is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And if you watched my video from Bratislava when I was talking about the books I hold there and Wordsworth's Classic and how much I love them because of the absolutely stunning, beautiful covers, let me tell you, after finishing the first book, I love them even more, because, okay, this is not a thick book, right? But I could hold it however I wanted, and the spine would not break, and also here would not be any line. So I just love it so much. But anyway, Orlando by Virginia Woolf, it was also my first read from this author, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, because I didn't really read what was this about besides the blurb on the back side of the book. But that was all I knew. And what I really love about these editions as well is that you have general introduction at the beginning, and then you have the introduction. And in general introduction, they will tell you to first enjoy the book and then read the introduction, because introduction has a lot of spoilers. And I don't know how about you, but I never read introduction in the books, because previously I already burned myself on this, because I was reading certain books and I thought, okay, it has a lot of characters, and introduction, at least what I thought, should give you an intro about the characters and about the story and about the setting, to explain as you will read it what's gonna happen, but not in a spoiler type of way. I did it twice, and both times it absolutely ruined the book for me, because it just gave me all the spoilers from the book, and I never look at the introduction ever again. And I don't know if it was only me who was mistaken and just thinking that introduction should be spoiler free and just give you the setting into the book. If I was the only one, then my bad, but I just thought that this, what is this for? And this is why I really appreciated the general introduction here, which told you to first read the book and then come back to introduction. So that's another good point for this Wordsworth Classics. But anyway, my friends, Orlando itself, wow, what an experience. I felt very confused the most of the time I was reading this, and it's one of those reads when I felt like, on one hand, so much is happening, but in the same time, nothing is happening, and yet it was like nothing is happening, but in the same time, so much is happening. You know what I mean? So because it was on one page, it felt like every sentence just starts a new story, a new chapter, or something big. It felt like she's engaged, but she loved this other one, and then she's ill, and then she's healthy, and then there is a baby, and then is divorced, and what is actually happening? And it was just like, it felt like when you have some movie edited and like a montage in a movie, you know, with like very loud music and like everything is just happening like this. That feels like in this book. And I felt like because it never really dived into those things that much, it felt like also nothing is happening in general, you know, very strange. But I must say what I very love in here, and I also underlined a lot of quotes here, because she really has a point when it comes to waking, how to say, like so like a feminine rage type of thing, because there was this part, and I have it here somewhere, and I also wrote there a note angry emoji note here, because there was this part, for example, when she was sitting in the captain, and then a little bit of her dress rolled up and it showed a little bit of her feet, and how she noticed that captain is just staring at her feet. And then there was this whole thinking process of her going like, well, women should dress modestly so it's not tempting men who might be married or having kids. But then again she switched into the point that, well, but why should women cover their legs when they're pretty, just because of the men cannot really put themselves together, you know, when having all these thoughts whilst they're having wives and kids. So very interesting points in this regarding like feminism and stuff, so I very much enjoyed those. But I must tell you that I think it will be a while until I'll pick another Virginia Woolf book, because I feel like you need the time to process what you read. At least for me it was like this with this one. You need the time to process this a little bit and then take a little break and then pick another of her books. But I would say this is solid 4 stars for me, and I'm curious to explore other books by her, but I just need a little bit break. So if you have any recommendation for other of her books which I should read, please let me know in the comments. So my friends, this is my little October-November pile plus Anthony Hopkins audiobook. And I am very happy with these 2 months of reading, and I'm very hoping that now I will have a little bit more time to speak with you more, because Now the renovating is mostly done for like 90%. Well, in the bigger picture it's like maybe 60-70, because at some point we still want to do, you know, like redo kitchen and bathroom, but this all has time when it comes to years. But for now we finished everything we had to, so now after I come home from work I will have some more time, or my days off, I will have some more time to talk about books. And also, which is great, is that now I'm commuting basically 1 hour there and 1 hour back, so I have a lot of time for audiobooks and for reading. And at least thanks to this I managed to be a little bit more active on my Instagram where I talk about books, so if you would like to have some more frequent, shorter updates, you can find me there. And hopefully I will be able to film another video quite soon. So until then, take care and see you soon. Bye bye!